Despite a push to legalize medical marijuana in Idaho, tonight lawmakers are working to take that power away from voters. What you need to know.
Our clouds kept us from really feeling the heat today, but as we head into the rest of the week, I'm still tracking some warm temperatures and a chance for isolated thunderstorms.
Plus, after thieves cost the Boys and Girls Club of Spokane County thousands of dollars, some Good Samaritans stepped in to help. We'll show you how tonight on your Night Report. Good evening. Thank you for joining us for the Night Report here on KREM 2 News. I'm Sydney Schofield. Topping our news tonight, police say a woman was shot and killed this morning in Spokane's East Central neighborhood. It happened about 1:30 this morning near the 20th block of South Haven. Police are investigating the shooting as a homicide. They say they believe it is an isolated incident. They say all the people involved have been identified. The medical examiner will release the victim's name at a later time, and we'll certainly keep you updated as we learn more about this case. This afternoon around 2 p.m., a body was found in the waters of Medical Lake. That's according to the Spokane County Sheriff's Office. Deputies, major crimes detectives, and Spokane Sheriff's forensic units all responded. They were helped by a dive team as well. At this point in the investigation, deputies don't know if the death was natural, accidental, or homicide. The Spokane County Medical Examiner will release the person's name and cause and manner of death at a later time. Let's take a break from the headlines and head to our outdoor weather center. Meteorologist Cody Proctor standing by. Cody, we are off to a warm start this week.
A warm start, but not as warm as what we initially thought, Sydney. Today, we only topped out at about 85 degrees for today. And even as we head into our late night hours tonight, we're currently at about 75 degrees at this very moment. Our relative humidity, as we continue to cool down and get closer to that dew point, it starts to feel a little more humid out here. That's just the way it goes with relative humidity. Winds coming out of the east at about 5 miles per hour at this time. Around our region, you can see some of us are in the 60s right now. That includes Coeur d'Alene and Deer Park as we head into the rest of this evening. But Omak still hanging on to 85 degrees tonight, 75 in Lewiston. Winds for the most part relatively calm to light, still a bit breezy around Omak from what we have been seeing. Now, this was one thing that kept us on the cooler side for today, or not quite as hot as what we were initially expecting. Those clouds lingered into the most of our morning, into our early afternoon hours. Eventually they did clear out, but we just never quite got the heat that we were initially expecting. Now, as we head into tomorrow, though, we are looking to start things off in the low 60s for us in the morning. So pretty mild start to the day, continuing to warm up as we head into our late morning hours. We could see some clouds in the morning, but we are expecting that to clear out. And we, at this time, expecting highs to get up into the low 90s. I'll have more coming up in my full forecast about some potential chances for some active weather. That's coming up later.
Earlier this month, burglars kicked in a deadbolted door and stole at least 40 tablets at the Boys and Girls Club of Spokane County. Tonight, as KREM 2's Emily Fox-Millian shows us, the community stepped up to help.
It's been nearly 2 weeks since thieves broke into the Boys and Girls Club's Northtown location, stealing 44 educational tablets and causing an estimated $20,000 to $25,000 in damage and stolen property.
So we got the alert that our building had been broken into, and then upon further investigation, seeing that there were some tools stolen, about 44 tablets and some other items. So it was just very devastating to know that, nobody ever wants to be broken into or have their space invaded.
The loss left staff scrambling to replace the tools that kids use for homework, educational activities, and summer programming. And for a nonprofit, losing thousands of dollars in resources isn't something you can budget for.
It's a very needed piece of technology.
But news of the break-in spread quickly, and after learning about it, community members reached out to help, including Washington State's First Interstate Bank.
It just kind of touched our hearts because our nonprofit organizations have to work so much harder for every dollar that they have.
They plan to just have 1 or 2 representatives sit down with the Boys and Girls Club of Spokane County to talk numbers, but that wasn't on the agenda.
And what staff thought would be an ordinary meeting is helping this Boys and Girls Club get back on their feet.
Oh my gosh, thank you guys so much.
Staff were surprised with a $12,500 check to help replace what was lost. The donation covers a significant portion of the club's losses, allowing leaders to shift their focus from recovering after the break-in to serving kids. Mosher says the decision to help was an easy one because of the role the club fills for families.
Now we can refocus our attention on just getting those tablets back here and then moving forward, of kind of get back on track.
The Boys and Girls Club has served Spokane for 25 years and continues to accept community support as it replaces the stolen equipment. In Spokane Valley, Emily Fox-Millian, KREM 2 News.
The Spokane Library's budget is falling short. It could lead to staff cuts and reduced hours by the end of this year. The Spokane Library could be up to $3 million short, so the central branch could be forced to close 3 days a week, with all other branches closing 2 days a week. Some parents say that the library is important to them and their families, while library officials say they need this money as soon as possible.
You want people to stay here for a while and raise a family here. Having access to stuff like this, I think, is really important. And like I said earlier, I think it would just be a big blow to the community.
Because we have limited funds at hand, we are going to need to make cuts sooner than 2027 in order to minimize the impact on the public.
Now, it is important to note this is a separate issue from the Spokane County Library District levy on the August ballot. The Office of Management and Budget proposed changes to the rules governing federal grants across dozens of agencies. It could affect several organizations that depend on federal funding, including Head Start programs here in Washington. Now, if it goes through, senior political appointees would review certain grant awards to ensure they're consistent with federal law, agency priorities, and where applicable, the president's policy priorities.
What you don't want is it to be politicized. And whether that's a Republican administration or a Democratic administration, you do not want grants to be predicated based on the political leanings of a person. You want to make sure the best person gets the grant.
Now, Head Start, which provides preschool education and family services for low-income children, receives about 80% of its funding through federal grants. The organization is concerned the proposal could put that funding at risk. While supporters say the changes would help ensure grants align with federal law and the national interest. Today, Governor Bob Ferguson helped launch a campaign against an initiative that would repeal Washington's so-called millionaire's tax. Ferguson joined nonprofit leaders and small business owners on the west side. They say they want to keep the tax intact, which proponents say could generate nearly $3.5 billion in revenue annually to help pay for education, childcare, healthcare, and tax credits for working families. Meanwhile, the group, Let's Go Washington, wants voters to repeal it, arguing the tax creates a framework for a broader state income tax. They say it's unconstitutional.
I think we'll prevail on this because the people of the state of Washington have demonstrated over and over and over again, when presented with a clear choice like this, they vote with their values.
Now, the Secretary of State's office is still verifying signatures submitted by Let's Go Washington to see if it qualifies for the November ballot. We'll keep you updated. Idahoans will not see medical marijuana on the ballot in November. The Secretary of State says the Idaho Medical Cannabis Act did not get enough valid signatures, but voters will decide on House Joint Resolution 4, which would amend the state constitution to take the power to legalize marijuana, narcotics, and other psychoactive substances out of the hands of voters. Here's more to that story. Right now, there are two ways to pass a law in Idaho. The traditional way, when the legislature passes a bill and the governor signs it into law, and the less common ballot initiative, which allows Idaho voters to pass a law. This new resolution would take that second option away from voters for initiatives that would change laws around drugs like marijuana and narcotics, meaning only the legislature would have the power to, for example, legalize marijuana in the state of Idaho. Idaho is one of 24 states that has that ballot initiative process. Right now, 7 of them have restrictions like this that prevent voters from changing laws around certain topics, but none of them relate to drugs, meaning if Idaho passes this resolution, it would become the only state in the country that would bar voters from changing laws around drugs like marijuana through a ballot initiative. Lawmakers behind the resolution say legalizing marijuana would be in direct conflict with the state constitution's clause on purity and morality, while the Natural Medicine Alliance of Idaho says too many people are prescribed opioids and legalizing medical marijuana would provide a safer alternative for people who need it. Now, the campaign gathering signatures to put the medical marijuana initiative on the ballot took a poll of voters back in February. Now, they say it shows 83% of likely voters back medical cannabis legalization, including 74% of Republicans, 95% of Democrats, and 92% of independents. Stay with us tonight. We have a lot more to cover. Could clocks stop changing for good? Well, the U.S. House just voted on permanent daylight saving time. We'll tell you what comes next. And it's the 4th consecutive night of U.S. airstrikes against Iranian military sites. We've got more on the ongoing conflict in the Middle East coming up.